Okay, so we were on this slide and we were discussing mineral corticoids. So mineral corticoids regulate electrolyte level of sodium and potassium in the extracellular fluid. It is very important to maintain sodium and potassium actually. Sodium is important because it affects extracellular fluid volume, it affects blood volume, blood pressure. Potassium is important because it set up the resting membrane potential of our cell membranes. For example, our nervous system, our skeletal system, it sets the resting membrane potential. Aldosterone is the most important hormone which is considered mineral corticoids. Aldosterone increases sodium reabsorption by the kidneys, so water will be retained in the blood, and aldosterone actually enhances elimination of potassium ions. Release is triggered by aldosterone is released when the blood volume goes down or blood pressure goes down or potassium level goes up. So, mechanism of aldosterone secretion. Like in chapter 25, we talked about renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. As the blood pressure goes down, it stimulates kidney to release renin. Renin triggers angiotensinogen released by the liver. And renin converts angiotensinogen is a plasma protein and it is converted into angiotensin 1. Now, angiotensin converting enzyme converts angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2. So this is a sequence, a series. Angiotensin 2 actually increases the release of aldosterone. So aldosterone secretion. If the potassium level increases, then the aldosterone is released. Adrenocorticotropic hormone is released by anterior pituitary. A small increase in aldosterone during so ACTH increases the release of aldosterone during stress. Atrial natriuretic peptide, which is released by the right atrium of the heart, and it is opposite to these renin. It blocks renin. It also reduces the activity of aldosterone, so it brings the blood pressure down. Atrial natriuretic peptide brings the blood pressure back to normal. So this is the slide about how it is regulated. Aldosteronism means aldosterone hypersecretion, and most of the time the cause is adrenal tumor. Hypertension and an edema due to increased level of sodium. So the person will have edema and the hypertension. Increased excretion of potassium, more potassium goes out in the urine, so that will affect the function of our neuron and the muscles. Because more potassium will go out, and potassium is responsible for resting membrane potential. Glucocorticoids keep blood glucose level relatively constant and they maintain the blood pressure. Cortisol, hydrocortisone. Cortisol is the same as we can buy hydrocortisone, those topic cream we can put on our skin during itching and those seasons. So Cortisol is produced by glucocorticoids, and actually it reduces inflammation and it reduces the activity of our white blood cells, so it suppresses the immunity. Cortisone and corticosterone are also released by glucocorticoids, cortisol, released in response of adrenocorticotropic hormone or during stress. Gluconeogenesis means formation of glucose from the fats and proteins. So glucose is formed by the breakdown of fats and proteins. It promotes uptake of blood glucose and it saves glucose for the brain. That is glucose. So it is known as glucose sparing effect because it saves glucose for the brain. Increased vasoconstriction causes increased blood pressure. Hypersecretion, Cushing's syndrome. Glucocorticoid excess causes Cushing's syndrome and it depresses cartilage and bone formation, inhibits inflammation and immune system. Hyposecretion will cause Addison's disease. So Addison's disease is due to the deficiency of glucocorticoids and mineral corticoids. So during Addison's disease, person will lose the weight, they will be dehydrated, they will have low blood pressure. And if it is very severe, it can be fatal. So this is actually patient before onset, same patient with Cushing's syndrome. So you see the fat will deposit here, fat will deposit on the face also. Gonadocorticoids. These are the weak androgens and they are converted into testosterone and some are converted into estrogen. And they contribute for the onset of puberty as well as the secondary sex characteristics. For example, the reproductive organ development. They are also responsible for sex drive in female. So hypersecretion of gonadocorticoids causes adrenogenital syndrome. So it is not very noticeable in adult male, but in prepubertal male, reproductive organs mature, secondary sexual characteristics emerge early if there is a hypersecretion. In females, if hypersecretion of gonadocorticoids, it will cause appearance of facial hair, masculine pattern of body hair. Adrenal medulla, which is the central region of the adrenal gland, and it produces epinephrine and norepinephrine. These hormones increase heart rate, increase blood pressure, increase blood glucose level. These hormones also cause the vasoconstriction of the blood vessels. Vasodilation of blood vessels to the brain, heart and skeletal muscle. They cause pupillary dilation and the contraction of erector pili muscles. Adrenal medulla, because it is innervated by sympathetic nervous system, the responses are rapid and brief. Epinephrine affects metabolic activities. It causes bronchial dilation. So people who have asthma, they have an inhaler. Inhaler has epinephrine. So they spray epinephrine that causes bronchial dilation. So it's easy to breathe actually. They increase blood flow to the skeletal muscles and heart. Norepinephrine causes peripheral vasoconstriction and it increases the blood pressure. So if the blood pressure goes down, norepinephrine is released and it will bring the blood pressure. It increases blood pressure. Adrenal medulla. Hypersecretion will cause hyperglycemia, means level of glucose will be high in the blood. Increased metabolic rate, increased heartbeat, hypertension, more nervousness, sweating. So the people who are under stress most of the time, they develop diabetes mellitus later in life because their level of glucose is high in the blood. Hyposecretion, not much problematic. And so this slide is showing the short-term stress and prolonged stress. Pineal gland. Pineal gland actually hangs from the roof of the third ventricle in the brain. Pineal gland releases a hormone known as melatonin. Melatonin actually responsible for the timing of sexual maturation and puberty. And suppose if more melatonin is released, puberty is delayed. So person will have long time to gain the height. If more melatonin also regulates our day and night cycle, and it also helps to maintain our body temperature. In winter, more melatonin is released. So when more melatonin is released, we feel more sleepy actually. Pancreas. Pancreas is a triangular gland, and pancreas has both exocrine and endocrine function. Exocrine part are acinar cells and they produce digestive enzymes. So 99% pancreas is exocrine. 1% pancreas is endocrine and it contains pancreatic islet. Islet means island. Pancreatic islet have alpha cells. Alpha cells produce glucagon. And glucagon increases the level of glucose in the blood. Beta cells produce insulin, and insulin actually transports glucose into the body cells. So insulin decreases the level of glucose in the blood. We see this is the islet actually, pancreatic islet. These are the alpha cells, dark colored, and they produce glucagon. These lighter color are the beta cells and they produce insulin. And these are the pancreatic acinar cells. They produce digestive enzymes. Glucagon. The major target organ is liver. So what glucagon does? Glucagon breaks down the glycogen which was stored in the liver. Breakdown of glycogen. So glucagon breaks down the glycogen and then releases the glucose in the blood. So the level of it increases the level of glucose in the blood. For example, we are not eating anything, the level of glucose is going down in the blood. Then the glucagon is released and it breaks down glycogen. Gluconeogenesis. New glucose is formed from lactic acid and non-carbohydrate like from protein. And glucagon will increase the level of glucose in the blood. So understand glucagon. Insulin is antagonistic to glucagon because insulin decreases the level of glucose in the blood. Insulin